Poland, situated right in the geographic heart of Europe, has changed its political borders several times over the course of its history. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, the country shares its borders with 7 other countries. Poland's surface area is half that of France. It has a 500-kilometer coastline on the Baltic Sea and is basically a flat country. 75% of the country is lower than 200 meters. In the south, the landscape becomes more mountainous. The Carpathian mountain range rises to an altitude of 2,500 meters in Poland. Poland has nearly 40 million inhabitants. It is the 6th most populous country in Europe and one of the rare countries of Central Europe that does not have a significant ethnic minority. 95% of the population is, in fact, of Polish origin. The country is making great strides in modernization, not only in the way its institutions function, but also in its infrastructure and facilities. For the mindset that for decades favored collective housing has now radically changed. The country's architectural heritage is now being carefully restored. Poland, rebuilding the ruins left by the Second World War, is accomplishing wonders in this domain. Entire cities have been reconstructed thanks to archive documents. And now their beauty shines forth as never before. The finest examples of Polish architecture have been restored, whatever their period. The Baroque curves were the forerunners of much more daring creations. Poland's history over the past 1,000 years has been quite turbulent. The kingdom was in conflict with the Teutonic Knights from the 14th century on, and several times the country was cut up by its neighbors. Poland even vanished from the maps during most of the 19th century. And yet it has survived, proud and united around its people, its culture, and its jealously preserved traditions. One of these age-old traditions is beer brewing.
Na zdrowie.
Poland is one of Europe's leading producers of pork. Pork has always been an important ingredient in the traditional cuisine, but Polish cooking has also been open to outside influences. Creativity and imagination have transported even the restaurants, like this one installed in a roadside aeroplane. As in all the northern countries, the traditions are strongly linked to the changing seasons. At the summer solstice, some girls sport a wreath of flowers. Folklore has always played an important part in Polish culture. This is true for the music of the great composer Frédéric Chopin, born in Poland of a French father. Arthur Rubinstein, one of his fellow countrymen, was one of his most brilliant interpreters. The political upheavals that shook the country in the 20th century often coincided with major changes in the local art scene. It took nearly 500 years for a non-Italian pope to be elected. John Paul II was Polish. He was witness and actor during the revival of the Polish Catholic Church, which embraces 95% of the population. The Church is such an integral part of the society that only in the light of Catholicism is it possible to understand the customs and history of Poland. The Catholic Church is not, however, the only denomination in the country. There is also a percentage of Protestants and Orthodox. The Second World War and the occupation by Nazi Germany were deeply traumatic for Poland, with widespread destruction and massive deportations. The Polish Jews paid a heavy toll in lives. Before the war, they made up 10% of the country's population. They were exterminated in Auschwitz and the half-dozen other concentration camps set up on Polish soil by the Nazis. Even today, their mere names evoke images of horror. The Communist Party took power after the war. But the economic fumbling and oppression led to riots that were brutally suppressed. In 1970, the militia quelled a wave of discontent that arose following a hike in the price of food. The union Solidarity, led by Lech Walesa and created in 1980, was at the vanguard of an even more militant movement. That's when Moscow, alarmed by the anti-Soviet demonstrations, ordered the Polish authorities to declare a state of siege. Solidarity was banned. However, in 1989, there were strikes once again, and with the backing of the Catholic Church, democracy emerged. The courageous little electrician became president and left the shipyards where it all began. Now, the former Communist Party headquarters is home to the stock exchange. Poland's long-drawn-out emancipation eventually led to the European Union, which it joined in 2004. Poland became one of the agricultural powerhouses of Europe. Agriculture makes up a significant part of the country's gross domestic product. This sector employs 1/5 of the workforce, despite the small size of the farms and the sometimes rudimentary means. Poland's agricultural production is both rich and varied. The vast forests of Poland have found new market outlets all over Europe. The success of prefabricated furniture and wooden houses have boosted the whole sector. Poland is by far the largest coal producer of the European Union. This indispensable fuel produces 95% of the country's electricity. Iron, zinc, and copper. The country has abundant mineral resources. The raw materials are used in processing industries such as the automobile and aeronautical industries. Poland has made a name for itself in the fields of aircraft and helicopter construction and motorization. As for the craftsmen, they apply their know-how to the traditions that are bursting with colors. Poland has to adapt to the European norms and so decrease the proportion of coal, a heavy pollutant, used to produce energy. Little by little, the principles of sustainable development are being put into practice here. Tourism is developing, largely thanks to the improvements in the road system. The local traditions and the picturesque landscapes are attracting a good number of visitors. The country has a vast potential for tourism. Its 20 national parks are havens of unspoiled nature. In the 16th century, Poland was one of the most powerful countries of Europe. Now, it's taking up an ambitious challenge on the paths of renewal.